Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. together. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna and Pranam beauty devotees. So welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam reading session. So let me share the quiz results for yesterday's session. Can you see my screen now? Okay. So this is the result for yesterday session. We have 4 members who attended the quiz. Vrindavan Brandar Prabhu, all correct answer. Ankur Sharma Prabhu, एक क्वेश्चन गलत हो गया. Then Shivani, wrong question. जय माता जी. देखते हैं किसका क्या गलत हुआ.
Hare Krishna, there was a question means praja.
हाँ.
So does that mean which is born?
Yes. Correct. So that which is born in the kingdom. Everything that is born in the kingdom is praja. Even the animals, even the human beings, or even everybody who are living entities. And the king is the caretaker of everybody. He is the responsible person for everybody. So that is the meaning.
But then this line seems to be a bit incomplete. That which is born
It
in
is
the kingdom.
there only because we read the purport. Okay. और क्या गलत हुआ महाराज युधिष्ठिर. Yes, so इसमें this is Maharaj Parikshit. The right answer is Maharaj Parikshit. Okay. So let us begin. So we are reading from first Canto, chapter 12, the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, and there Rishonak Rishi, he asked Sud Goswami that please tell me again the elaborated the pastime of Parikshit Maharaj and how he was attacked in the womb and how he was saved and how did he left his body. And so yesterday we did first 5 shlokas in Navampada Prabhu had read. So today we will continue with the 6th shloka today. And those who wants to read, they can raise their hand. Kim te kama suras par sparha mukund manaso brija adhi jaharur mudam ragya shuditasya yathe tare. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Right. Translation. O Brahmins, the opulence of the king was so enchanting that the denizens of heaven aspired for it. But because he was absorbed in the service of the Lord, nothing could satisfy him except the Lord's service. तो यहाँ पे बात कर रहे हैं युधिष्ठिर महाराज के बारे में. तो जो सूत गोस्वामी है वो पहले युधिष्ठिर महाराज जी के बारे में बता रहे हैं कि Emperor Yudhishthira administered generously to everyone during his reign, and he was exactly like his father. And then news reached the celestial planets about Maharaj Yudhishthira's worldly possessions and sacrifices by which he would attain a better destination, and his queen, his stalwart brothers, extensive land, and his fame, etc. And then, like he was, because he was completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, so nothing could satisfy him. So that is the connection. But there are two things in the world which can satisfy living beings. When one is materially engrossed, he is satisfied only by sense gratification. But when one is liberated from the conditions of the material modes, he is satisfied only by rendering loving service for the satisfaction of the Lord. This means that the living being is constitutionally a servitor and not one who is served. Jivara Sarupa Nitya Krishna Das. Being illusioned by the conditions of the external energy, one falsely thinks himself to be the served, but actually he is not served. He is servant of the senses, like lust, desire, anger, avarice, pride, madness, and intolerance. When one is in his proper senses by attainment of spiritual knowledge, he realizes that he is not the master of the material world, but is only a servant of the senses. At that time, he begs for the service of the Lord and thus becomes happy without being illusioned by so called material happiness. Maharaj Yudhishthir was one of the liberated souls, and therefore for him there was no pleasure in a vast kingdom, good wife, obedient brothers, happy subjects, and prosperous world. These blessings automatically follow for a pure devotee, even though the devotee does not aspire for them. The example set herein is exactly suitable. It is said that one who is hungry is never satisfied by anything other than food. The whole material world is full of hungry living beings. Hunger is not for good food, shelter, or sense gratification. The hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. Due to ignorance, only, they think that the world is dissatisfied because there is not sufficient food, shelter, defense, and objects of sense gratification. This is called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger. But the foolish leaders cannot see that even the people who are most sumptuously materially satisfied are still hungry. And what is their hunger? What is their hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually for spiritual food, spiritual shelter, spiritual defense, and spiritual sense gratification. These can be obtained in the association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Shri Krishna, and therefore one who has them cannot be attracted by the so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification of the material world, even if they are relished by the denizens of the heavenly planets. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, it is said that the Lord, it is said by the Lord that even in the topmost planets of universe, namely the Brahma Loka, wherein the duration of life is multiplied by millions of years by Earth's calculation, one cannot satisfy his hunger. तो ये भगवद गीता में आता है अब्राह्मण भुवन लोका
कृत्रिम विधि में पढ़े
अब्राह्म भुवन लोका पुनर्वर्तिनो अर्जुना मामुपेत्य तो कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein the repeated birth and death take place. That means in this whole material world, like even from the topmost planet to the lowest planet, these four problems are common for everyone: birth, death, old age, and disease. Even Brahmaji, he gets old and he leaves. He also has to leave his body, and so the only thing that can satisfy is spiritual and not anything material. Such hunger can be satisfied only when the living being is situated in the immortality, which is attained in the spiritual sky, far, far above the Brahma Loka, in the association of Lord Mukunda, the Lord who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. तो जैसे यहाँ पे आया है श्लोक में मुकुंद मनसो द्विजा. So there is a reason that Lord भगवान को यहाँ पे मुकुंद बोला गया है. मुकुंद means that who is the giver of giver of liberation. And Prabhupada is writing here, who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. Where when they uh, when the living entity goes from material world to spiritual world, and then they attain immortality over there, and they get chance to serve the Lord, and 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 there it gets reinstated in their own constitutional position where they get satisfied. And आगे जाके अभी प्रभुपाद बताएंगे that for pure devotees there is no such thing called material. Pure devotees, every existence is spiritual existence only, because they are never separated from the Lord. And when they are always thinking about the Lord, even the material existence is also spiritual. And for the Lord also, अभी आएगा अगले श्लोक में आएगा, प्रभुपाद बड़ा अच्छे से लिखते हैं. For the Lord also there is nothing called material existence. Everything is spiritual. और जैसे यहाँ पे आया कि the only hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. तो ये प्रभुपाद बहुत बार बताते थे कि that his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would say that the only thing that is needed in this whole world, which is short or which is deficiency, is only Krishna consciousness. Rest everything Lord has provided ample amounts. The only thing which is lacking, like there may be debate that, oh, the food is lacking, shelter is lacking, there's so many other things which may be shortage of things would be, they may be there. But he would say that the only thing which is not there, which is lacking, is only the presence of Krishna consciousness. And for the rest thing, the Lord has provided ample. Okay, so Ankur Prabhu.
प्रभु जी अभी आरती चल रही है, मैं नेक्स्ट टाइम पढ़ लूंगा, बैकग्राउंड नॉइस आएगा.
ठीक है. शिवानी.
Hare Krishna. मातुर्गर्भगतो वीरः स तदा भृगुनन्दना ददर्श पुरुषं कञ्चित् दह्यमान अस्त्र तेजस mother. Sorry. Translation. O son of Bhrigu Shanak, when the child Parikshit, the great fighter, was in the womb of his mother Uttara and was suffering from the burning heat of Brahmastra thrown by Ashwadhama, he could observe the Supreme Lord coming to him. Purport. Death generally involves remaining in the trance for 7 months. A living being, according to his own action, is allowed to enter into the womb of a mother by the vehicle of a father's semen, and thus he develops his desired body. This is the law of birth in specific bodies according to one's past action. When he is awake from trance, he feels the inconvenience of being confined within the womb, and thus he wants to come out of it, and sometimes, fortunately, prays to the Lord for such liberation. Maharaj Parikshit, while in the womb of his mother, was struck by Brahmastra released by Ashwadhama, and he was feeling the burning heat. But because he was a devotee of the Lord at once appeared himself within the womb by his all-powerful energy. And the child could see that someone else had come to save him, even in that helpless condition. The child Parikshit endured the unbearable temperature due to his being a great fighter by nature. And for this reason, the word virha has been used.
So Prabhupada would also say that that means sleeping for 7 months. Like when you go to sleep and then you wake up, you don't really get the time which is passed away, and you wake up the next day as if like you just slept. So similarly, this is the meaning of death also. Like that means like, and after 7 months, when the baby is developed in the womb of a mother. In 7 months, the consciousness is such developed that he can feel that where he is, and then he prays to the Lord because the situation is so much painful and also inconvenient. And then he wakes up, and then padhte hain in Bhagavatam, the prayer comes in third canto, 31st chapter, that that how the pregnancy evolves and how the fetus gets developed and in the womb, and what is the precarious condition in the womb, and then but here, like, since Parikshit Maharaj, um, he's a pure devotee of the Lord ever since, from the beginning, and then he prays to the Lord because of the tap that he is feeling for because of the Brahmastra uh, um, shot by Ashwathama and in the womb, and then there he takes darshan of the Lord, and the Lord himself comes to protect his pure devotee. And Prabhu, you want to read, or still it's going on?
I can read. Angushtamatram mamalam puratmaulinam apibya darshanam shyamam tadidvasasam samachyutam. Translation. He, the Lord, was only thumb high, but he was all transcendental. He had a very beautiful, blackish, infallible body, and he wore a dress of lightning yellow and a helmet of blazing gold. Thus, he was seen by the child.
तो यहाँ पे भगवान के बारे में बता रहे हैं कि what was his form like he was a thumb high and very beautiful blackish infallible body, wore a dress of a lightning yellow and helmet of blazing gold. So this also comes in scriptures. I don't know where I read it. I think only discussed in Prabhupada purports only, that even the size, like we understand the size of the soul is like 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. Similarly, the size of Paramatma is also given. So the size of Paramatma is thumb high. So in everyone's heart, the Paramatma is of the same size, thumb high. So like that. This is the size. Yes, Prabhu, you can continue.
श्रीमद दीर्घ चतुर्बाहुं तप्त कांचन कुंडलम क्षतिजाक्षम गदापाणिम आत्मनः सर्वतो दिशं परिभ्रमन्तं मुल्काभां भ्रामयन्तं गदा मुहुः. Translation. The Lord was enriched with 4 hands, earrings of molten gold, and eyes blood red with fury as he loitered about. His club constantly encircled him like a shooting star. Purport. It is said in the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, that Supreme Lord Govinda, by his one plenary portion, enters into the halo of the universe and distributes himself as Paramatma or the Super Soul, not only within the heart of every living being, but also within every atom of the material elements. Thus, the Lord is all-pervading by his inconceivable potency, and thus he entered the womb of Uttara to save his beloved devotee, Maharaj Parikshit. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord assured everyone that his devotees are never to be vanquished. No one can kill a devotee of the Lord because he is protected by the Lord, and no one can save a person whom the Lord desires to kill. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he can both save and kill as he likes. He became visible to his devotee Maharaj Parikshit even in that awkward position in the womb of his mother, in a shape just suitable for his vision. The Lord can become bigger than thousands of universes and can become smaller than an atom at the same time. Merciful as he is, he becomes just suitable to the vision of the limited living being. He is unlimited. He is not limited by any measurement of our calculation. He can become bigger than what we can think of, and he can become smaller than what we can conceive. But in all circumstances, He is the same all-powerful Lord. There is no difference between the thumb-like Vishnu in the womb of Uttara and the full-fledged Narayan in the Vaikuntha Dham, the kingdom of Godhead. He accepts the form of a Archa Vigraha, worshipable deity, just to accept service from his different incapable devotees. By the mercy of the Archa Vigraha, the form of the Lord in material elements, the devotees who are in the material world can easily approach the Lord, although he is not conceivable by the material senses. The Archa Vigraha is therefore an all spiritual form of the Lord to be perceived by the material devotees. Such an Archa Vigraha of the Lord is never to be considered material. Therefore, there is no difference between matter and spirit for the Lord, although there is a gulf of difference between the two in the case of the conditioned living being. For the Lord, there is nothing but spiritual existence, and similarly, there is nothing except spiritual existence for the pure devotee of the Lord in his intimate relation with the Lord.
So ये पहले डिस्कस कर रहा था. For the Lord, there is nothing but spiritual existence, and similarly, there is nothing except spiritual existence for the pure devotees, because they are always in relationship. They can see they are always situated in on a transcendental platform, Brahmabhuta stage, Brahmabhuta platform, and for them there is nothing material. Even their own bodies, they don't have material bodies; they have spiritual bodies. और जैसे यहाँ पे प्रभुपाद बता रहे हैं कि in Brahma Samhita also it comes Brahma Samhita 5.35. So मैं ये आपको screen पे दिखा देता हूँ. So this shloka comes very very wonderful कि एको एको अपि असौ रचित्युं जगदण्ड कोटिं यच्च एको अपि असौ रचितुं जगदण्ड कोटिं यच्चक्तिरस्ति जगदण्ड छाय यदन्तः अंडांतरस्था परमाणुचयान्तरस्थं गोविंदमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. कि जो भगवान है वो, जैसे यहाँ पे बताया गया है कि ही एज परमात्मा एंटर्स इनटू, वो हमारे हृदय में तो है ही है, बट इवन इन ऑल द एटम्स ही एंटर्स, and because he has entered into each and every atom, that is why this material world also is existing, comes into existence because of his presence. And the Lord is all pervading and inconceivable. And in a similar way we can understand, जैसे हम कहते हैं कि Lord is aware of everything that is going on in this universe. So how is that possible? It is possible through this feature of Paramatma feature only. Although it doesn't have to have this feature, but it is made possible through this. Like for example, we can understand, if we take an example on ourselves, like we are conscious of our own body. So like this is जो soul है, soul के बारे में बताया गया है that it is all pervading in the whole body, and it is aware कि अगर आप अपने पैर पे एक छोटी सी एक सुई भी चुभाते हैं तो आपको पता लग जाता है. So if we are aware of our own body, but the soul is very minute and infinitesimal, situated in the region of the heart. Similarly, the Paramatma, we are conscious of the body. The Bhagwan is supremely conscious of everything because he is present everywhere. So in one way, everything is his body. So the whole material world is his body only. We are all existing within his body. So in that way, he is aware of everything which is going on. और जैसे यहाँ पे बताया कि no one can kill a devotee of the Lord because he is protected by the Lord. तो ये आता है कि मारे कृष्णा राखे कृष्णा मारे के, कि अगर भगवान आपको मारना चाहते हैं तो कौन बचा सकता है, और अगर भगवान आपको बचाना चाहते हैं तो कौन मार सकता है. So this is like for Parikshit Maharaj, you know. And similarly, so भगवान के जो रूप है उसके बारे में बताया गया कि जब भगवान वहां पे he enters into the womb, he is the same Bhagavan, who is the 400 Vishnu form or full-fledged Narayan form in Vaikuntha Dham. There is no difference. Similarly, Prabhupada here takes he gives the example of Archa Vigraha also. Like this, ये चीज तो हम आज भी डिस्कस कर रहे थे सेशन में, in afternoon session Gira showed the same, कि whether are we looking at the deities in the form of a stone, and or they are or whether are we looking at like there are archavigraha who are no different than the Lord, and in that with the way we would be reciprocating, in the same way we get the reciprocation back. But there is no difference whatsoever in Bhagavan and the Archavigraha, the form. In fact, it is his mercy only that he takes that form so that we can serve, because we are not able to perceive the transcendental form. So he comes down and he takes that form so that we are able to see through these eyes. We are able to serve the Lord, and through that, and so like that. Astra tejas swagadaya niharam iva gopati vidhamantam sanikarshe pariyekshata ka iti aso. The Lord was thus engaged in vanquishing the radiation of the Brahmastra. The Lord was thus engaged in vanquishing the radiation of the Brahmastra, just as the sun evaporates a drop of the dew. He was observed by the child who thought about who he was. Vidhuyatad ameyatma bhagavan dharma gupvivo mishato dashammasasya tatraivan tar dadhe hari tatra eva anta dadhe hari. While thus being observed by the child, the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, the super soul of everyone and the protector of the righteous, who stretches in all direction and who is unlimited by time and space, disappeared at once. Child Parikshit was not observing a living being who is limited by time and space. There is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the individual living being. The Lord is mentioned herein as a supreme living being unlimited by time and space. Every living being is limited by time and space, even though a living being is qualitatively one with the Lord. Quantitatively, there is a great difference between the supreme soul and the common individual soul. In the Bhagavad Gita, both the living beings and the supreme beings are said to be all pervading. Yena sarvam idam tatam. Yet there is a difference between these two kinds of all pervasiveness. A common living being or soul can be all pervading within his own limited body, but the supreme living being is all pervading in all space and time. So जो हम पीछे डिस्कस कर रहे थे, so ये आगे ही आ गया प्रभुपाद के परपट में, जैसे कि we are conscious of our own body, जो भगवान है he is supremely conscious of everything. A common living being cannot extend its influence over another common living being by its all-pervasiveness, but the supreme super soul, the personality of Godhead, is unlimitedly able to exert his influence over all places and all times and over all living beings. And because he is all-pervasive, unlimited by time and space, he can appear even within the womb of the mother of child Parikshit. He is mentioned herein as the protector of righteous. Anyone who is surrendered soul unto the Supreme is righteous, and he is specifically protected by the Lord in all circumstances. The Lord is the indirect protector of the unrighteous also, for he rectifies their sins through his external potency. So Prabhupada, so amazing. Prabhupada is writing that कि वो भगवान जो भक्त हैं उनको तो प्रोटेक्ट करते ही हैं, जो भक्त नहीं भी हैं उनको भी एक तरह से it is his mercy only that he has created this whole world and the external energy is there and he himself is present as Paramatma in their heart. So there is, तो ये भगवान की मर्सी नहीं है तो क्या है? And even if the sins, he gets punishment for whatever wrongs he does. So that is his mercy only in that sense, because through that the person is becoming purified and gets the chance to uplifted in spiritual progress. The Lord is mentioned herein as one who is dressed in 10 directions. This means dressed with garments on 10 sides, up and down. He is present everywhere and can appear and disappear at his will from everywhere and anywhere. His disappearance from the sight of the child Parikshit does not mean that he appeared on the spot from any place. He was present there, and even after his disappearance, he was there, although invisible to the eyes of the child. This material covering of the effulgent firmament is also something like a womb of the Mother Nature, and we are all put into the womb by the Lord, the Father of all living beings. He is present everywhere, even in the material womb of Mother Durga, and those who are deserving can see the Lord. तथा सर्वाग्नोदके सानुकूला विहोदये यज्ञे वंशधरा पांडोर भूय पांडुर Ivajasha. Thereupon, when all the good signs of the zodiac gradually evolved, the heir apparent of Pandu, who would be exactly like him in progress to birth. तो यहाँ पे अभी बता रहे हैं कि परीक्षित महाराज he has taken the birth. Astronomical calculations of stellar influences upon living beings are not suppositions but are factual as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Every living being is controlled by the laws of nature at every minute, just as a citizen is controlled by the influence of the state. The state laws are grossly observed, but the laws of material nature, being subtle to our gross understanding, cannot be experienced grossly. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 3.9, every action of life produces another reaction, which is binding upon us, and only those who are acting on behalf of Yagya Vishnu are not bound by reactions. Yagyat karmano annatra. Our actions are judged by the higher authorities, the agents of the Lord, and thus we are awarded bodies according to our activities. So everything that Prabhupada is writing is Shastra only. तो जैसे हमने पहले भी हम देखते हैं कि how we can relate every single line to and some shloka in the scripture. So this is also one wonderful shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam ki karmana deva netrena. So this comes in third canto that ki kaise जो हमारे जो कर्म हैं they are watched by and they are judged by the higher authorities deva netrena. The laws of nature is so subtle that every part of our body is influenced by the respective stars, and a living being obtains his working body to fulfill his terms of imprisonment by the manipulation of such astronomical influence. So Prabhupada is here, he is bringing out astrology and astronomy. A man's destiny is therefore ascertained by the birth time constellation of stars, and a factual horoscope is made by a learned astrologer. It is a great science, and misuse of a science does not make it useless. Maharaj Parikshit, or even the personality of Godhead, appear in certain constellations of good stars, and thus the influence is exerted upon the body, thus born at an auspicious moment. The most auspicious constellation of stars takes place during the appearance of the Lord in this material world, and it is specifically called Jayanti, a word not to be abused for any other purposes. तो जैसे हम देखते हैं कि आजकल हर किसी भी चीज के लिए जयंती लगा देते हैं वर्ड. कोई अगर महापुरुष भी बॉर्न हुए, कोई अगर जैसे गांधी जयंती आती है, so there it cannot be used because Jayanti is only reserved for the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. No other personality can take that word. So Prabhupada is writing a word not to be abused for any other purposes. Maharaj Parikshit was not only a great Kshatriya emperor, but also a great devotee of the Lord. Thus, he cannot take his birth at any inauspicious moment. As a proper place and time is selected to receive a respectable personage, so also to receive such a personality as Maharaj Parikshit, who was especially cared for by the Supreme Lord. A suitable moment is chosen when all good stars assemble together to exert their influence upon the king. Thus, he took his birth just to be known as a great hero of Srimad Bhagavatam. This suitable arrangement of astral influences is never a creation of man's will, but is the arrangement of superior management of the agency of the Supreme Lord. Of course, the arrangement is made according to the good or bad deeds of the living being. Herein lies the importance of pious acts performed by the living beings. Only by pious acts can one be allowed to get good wealth, good education, and beautiful features. Janmeshwara Shutashri. These are decided by our previous pious activities or previous karmas. The sanskaras of the school of Sanatan Dharma, man's eternal engagement, are highly suitable for creating an atmosphere for taking advantage of good stellar influences. तो देखिए, now Prabhupada is bringing the importance of sanskars. जैसे जो दशम विद्या संस्कार होते हैं in varnashram dharma. So that the sanskaras of the school of Sanatan Dharma are highly suitable for creating an atmosphere for taking advantage of good stellar influences, and therefore Garbhadan Sanskar, or the first seedling purificatory process prescribed for the higher castes, is the beginning of all pious acts to receive a good, pious, and intelligent class of men in human society. There will be peace and prosperity in the world due to good and sane population only. There is hell and disturbance only because of the unwanted, insane populace addicted to sex indulgence. Hare Krishna. So we are already 5 minutes ago. So if there are any questions or any comments, then we can take. We'll close the session. Okay. Close the session. Om Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namini Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschanti Devsatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnave Namo Namo Jai Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. And I'm very sorry that we forgot to do the Mangalacharan in the beginning. So I just realized that we didn't do the Mangalacharan. At least we are closing it with Prabhupada Pranam. Very sorry. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.